Would you like to see how we build the GGBY space nets in my living room? So does Puff. Check it out in this episode of How Not to Highline. Hi, I'm Ryan Jinks and welcome to my living room, where I spent days building some bomber anchors in my walls, which we'll show you how to build indoor slackline anchors some other video. But the reason I did that is so we could make these 10-foot by 10-foot space nets for GGBY. Our goal is to make 9 of them for 900 square feet of space nets at the wet beaver spot that it normally is. We're not going to use Andy Lewis's net anymore, but have GGBY have its own net, and we're going to make it square. Because you actually get more square footage out of a square shape than any other shape, and size matters at GGBY. But let us show you how we are working on segmented nets, because obviously we love segmented things on this channel. I'm super into 50-meter segmented highlines where you connect them with Enove splits, so we can carry less, buy less, and be more flexible in what we do with segmented lines. Well, same thing here. We want to have segmented nets so it's easier to carry down there, easier to make, and when you can permanently set them up until they're fully made, makes a huge difference. So let me show you our prototypes and how it doesn't work. This is the Slack Museum, in case you were wondering, where we have lots of goodies that we're gonna be coming out with soon. So make sure you're on Facebook and Instagram. We're gonna show you all of our slackline history stuff later. So let me go over the original perimeter idea. This was 6mm am steel, which is plenty strong. It's actually only seen about 70% of the force of any space leg, the webbing that holds up the space net. And so the webbing would break before this does if this is the same strength as the webbing in theory. This is about 30 kilonewtons strong, and basically most webbings are only about that. So this is plenty strong, but we love redundancy. So I have 2 layers of 6mm am steel, the exact same length, but independent. And so that's why you see 2 of them here together. The splice that I have right here is on this side for 1, and on the other side, I put the splice there. Not a real reason. Here, swing around here, Lorenzo. We have the padding that comes on Jerry Mashesky's Balance Community's soft shackles. This padding is pretty awesome. It would protect from abrasion from the corners, because the corners are going to see a lot more abrasion, if you want to call it that, potential abrasion, from what I'm going to use soft shackles here because, well, I love soft shackles. So what I thought after building this and making my walls bomber is I wonder if I build 4 squares or 9 squares, if they're going to behave. So come over here and I'll show you my prototype. So I made 4 sections of paracord that were the exact same size with basically no netting in between. And I wanted to see if I can keep them square shape once they're up. It didn't work. So let me show you why. As a continuous piece, when you connect them all together, which I thought this was quite clever use of a soft shackle, it wants to pull in. This is a separate piece out here. And if I were to unclip this stuff, it was sucking into the middle to be basically one big star. Super, super frustrating. So I thought, well, what if I add 1 perimeter all the way around that is continuous? And that is what I would take these 2 things. And if I clip this perimeter, would the perimeter hold this out in order to be a square? But then it doesn't stay square. It has actually been pretty frustrating. So then I've been messaging people, and Michael Nichols asked me if I was trying to use continuous pieces. And then I realized, what if I used end-to-end span sets? It's actually kind of common for people to use span sets because they're so bomber. I'm just obsessed with am steel, and that's why I started with that. So pretend that these are span sets. These would be 4 10-foot long span sets for a 100 square foot net. And if I did that, my theory is we'd be able to connect end to end. Let's pretend this is 2 separate things. I would connect that with a soft shackle, but the energy would go straight through and not want to suck in. So we're going to build 4 prototype nets out of just spending a few minutes weaving these end-to-end sections that give us a perfect square that we don't have to build. I'm thinking about using purple span sets because they're plenty strong. And then maybe in the corners using soft shackles to connect them because I've got to get soft shackles somewhere in this system. I just got to. So Lorenzo's going to help weave 4 of these things that you see here, and then we're going to try to rig it here in the living room to see if they stay squares. Okay, so Lorenzo weaved 4 of these space nets individually to our anchors here in the house. And then we put them together and it kind of works. This doesn't suck in. The force transfers through the line. That's great. What we are finding is if we take these experimental things off, of course we wouldn't be using carabiners to connect these, but the point is that when this was rigged and woven, that this wasn't pointing this way, it was pointing out more. And this had more of an even curve to it, just like this net as a whole right now. And so what's happening is because this side is in, I don't know, 5%, 10% more, it has this loose part here. One option we have is to connect, let's say, there, here, here. And this is just 4 squares connected together. We would have 9. I don't know how the center one would act, but Lorenzo said that maybe a 9-foot span set here instead of a 10-foot on the 2 insides might help. I'm not sure that you're trying to get too fancy if you're trying to make the shapes all perfect. Instead, I think we could just take this vagina shape and put a hymen here and weave it together. And if you did that to all of them, you could actually get your tension that you need for the net not to feel saggy. So we kind of want to do some tests in the park to make sure like this goes well. I don't feel like these are that critical for force. I don't feel like that needs to be redundant, but this perimeter I believe does. So if we do this, then we should probably take 2 span sets per leg on the outside, so it's redundant, or make an Amsteel leg backup of some sort. But the purple span sets are plenty strong. I'd rather have 2 purple span sets than like a green span set or something. Redundancy is very, very nice. And then we could do maybe the E-nobe split to connect them all here with maybe like an 8mm soft shackle, something bigger. So there is a chance that we will still build the 9 space nets here in the living room 1 at a time. And then when we get to GGBY, we'd lay them all down like a quilt, connect them in the key spots that we want, rig it, and then spend 1 day basically weaving the shit out of it and connecting all of these vaginas together so that it becomes 1 net when we get there. Once it's all together, we can just leave it like that and store it like that and keep using it for GGBY each year. There's no really reason to store it in 9 separate pieces, but it's sure nice to build a 900 square foot net in my living room. So I guess the next experiment that we'd want to do is to try to make the inner legs, I don't know, 10% smaller, like maybe tie a few knots in it or something and do that and see if that actually helps the shape, because we can still, if this was also shortened up, we have a smaller vagina to fill. We were able to shorten it up about 20%. So if this was a 10-foot leg, we could buy an 8-foot span set for the interleg here and the interleg right here. These would be 10-foot span sets and would account for the fact that this distance right here is curved in like all nets are. This didn't fix 100% everything, but it's so much better. If you do that and then that, then you could just weave the difference. And we will have to do some weaving, I believe, on site. But this has already improved it What we're gonna do now is lay these down, take the figure eights out, have the 10-foot sides, or, oh, we might leave the figure eights. This actually doesn't fix this. What we would do is paracord the two things together all the way across in order to, the carabiners don't actually quite do it, but let's see here. Yeah, we're just basically gonna put these two slings together and see if that creates any soft spots. We're trying to get rid of these soft spots here. This is tight, so we'll just keep experimenting until we buy a span set. We have to kind of make 4 nets to see if this works. Then we have to theorize what the center net's gonna do when we have a center one when we do 9. I assume we would do 10-foot legs all the way around because it's not gonna have a weird shape. So let's stitch this together now. Longer legs. These will be, after we redesign it all, these will be the 12-foot span sets, and the inside legs are the 10-foot span sets. And so we'll have 10, 10, 12, 12, 12, 12. And so this is actually not gonna be 4 nets, it's gonna be 9. So the center square that would go here is also just gonna be 4 10-foot span sets. So this has almost everything is tight with no saggy spots. So we ordered the span sets. I think it was like, I don't know, like 30 or 40 of them. And we're gonna do the quick version, maybe 5 minutes a net. And once we get the sides shrunken in to pretty much what they would be when they're fully rigged, fully woven, then we'll go to the park, rig all 9 together, and make sure that this works before we spend the next 2 months weaving these nets. So stay tuned. Oh, look what came. Look what we got. It's Christmas every day at my house. Lots and lots of span sets. So excited. So many span sets. Here is our perimeter for all of the 9 space nets. What I've done since I was waiting for them is I took my 10-foot span sets that I owned, which come in all different shapes, sizes, and thicknesses. Yellow is pretty impressively thick. All of our space net's gonna be this 1-ton working load limit because that's super plenty enough. And what I did was I discovered that I had to tighten this bolt here. Paracord on soft shackles is really bad. So I might have to like commit this one to this corner every time and then get rid of this when I'm done because that's definitely gonna compromise it. But when this doesn't stretch at all, I had to get it from that bolt to this one was, I basically had to tension it from this corner and that corner since it's not one continuous perimeter anymore. But this one is pretty normal. They touch right here, but there's gonna definitely be this gap every time. But just do like a primitive system here. This rope is gonna make 8 segments within this space net. So I did a diamond pattern first, and then I just went across that way, and then back this way. This is the only one that I would have to double up. Otherwise, I would just cut the difference, clove hitch it here, and just eliminate having to, which I might do, or I just bunch them together and paracord around it. But if you notice, the sides of this one is a little bit sucked in. You know, that's pretty much straight. So that's probably 2 feet sucked in there. But here, you can see that it's only pulled in maybe a foot. There's only about 12 inches between this point and what would be straight. It's okay to have a little curve in this because when we de-rig all this, we're gonna put this next to the other one, which would be about 2 feet away, put them together when it's untensioned, and then when we rig it in the park, it would add all the tension we need for our net, keeping all this tight. At least I hope so. If you didn't know, I paint for a living, so this is what I do after work. How long has this taken us so far? Probably 20 minutes? Now, of course, we have a lot more to fill in. We're just using scrap paracord right now that we have all over the place. I just have like this big box of paracord. We're going to use that up before we use up our new spools. The goal is to put 4 miles of paracord into these nets. So let's watch the master at work here. We're basically just doing random. We just go around. We don't clove hitch every time, otherwise it doesn't automatically tension. And you have to just pick your favorite 90 degrees. So it, yep. So you can go different directions. And then when you get to the end, you want to make sure you stop at a rope or the span set. And we are using constrictor knots and clove hitches with tail tie off. So you just never pass another rope without looping it. And that way you don't have any loose strands that could catch your foot or something and trip. This is a problem we're gonna have is how tight we have just made this in the room. You can see here how much curve there is, which is, you know, typical and to be expected. But to get it back this tight again in order to continue weaving later after we do our part tests is gonna be, I think, kind of tricky.
Maybe.
But, because you want it to be at the existing tension if we're gonna continue to weave. But it's pretty cool. You wanna see a really bad example of how not to do this? I didn't realize how tight this is. This is like really, really tight. And we've got the, let's see here, the 2 paracord on that and 2 paracord directly on a hanger. And my wall is going to shit. I might have to change that bolt. It might be bending on me. It's only a 1/4 inch. So nobody's getting on this net, not yet. But the goal is to put a board going across this way, so this wall doesn't bow in anymore, and then we can put people on the net, which would be super, super fun. Okay, Mel is de-rigging our second net. We have all this woven on each corner. We have to be careful not to pull this in too far here without pulling it that direction, because it needs to be pulled that way. But we re-rigged the last one after de-rigging it to see how tight we could get it, and we could get it mostly tight, but you definitely lose quite a bit. So when we set this back up is when we're going to finish them. We're not going to set this up and take it down multiple times.
This thing's tight.
It's tight. And then what I have over here is, see if I can one-hand this. What we do is we just kind of fold it up. Oh, gnar. And I leave the soft shackle on there. So that's a 5mm, the small ones I make, about 4 inches long, but double wrapped, super bomber. I might change it out to 6mm if it is the main corner, and probably 2 of them for redundancy. These are constrictor hitches that we did that really, really is solid on there, and then everything else is just kind of wrapped. And I think this will stay in place as long as we handle it well. Are you done on yours?
Yep.
Cool. This isn't ideal. I should probably change this hanger to one of those welded ones, but we're not bouncing around and doing a lot of stuff on this, so it's not causing any damage to the soft shackle at this point. I just have to be careful with it. Let's make our third one. So we have our first spool that we're diving into now. We have it just clipped on some rope here. Makes it nice and easy to unspool. And it's nice to have, like, how big of sections are you taking off? 10 feet? Maybe
10 feet, 15?
Maybe 15. Everything's pretty snug, but something super interesting we've done now, this super good constrictor hitches here, is we put the dyno in here to see what it'd go to. And what's interesting is it was 0.2 when we just tensioned it here, but then after we put the red rope in, sucked in all the sides, it got up to 1.6. And now you can see that it has settled back down to 1.2. And in English, that's 3 and was 400 pounds of force on my walls. So that's pretty gnarly. They're creaking pretty bad. I would have to reinforce this stuff a lot if I'm going to have people on them. But we definitely cannot bring this back up to over 1 kilonewton with paracord and a primitive tension system. So we're only weaving a little bit, and then when we reweave more stuff after we set them back up, then we will not take them down until we're done.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah, and then we're wrapping it twice around these parts here. So when we de-rig it, it stays instead of coming, getting loose because it's all saggy. So every junction's now got, you know, more wraps than just a simple wrap. So we're getting better with each one.
That sounds crazy.
Huh. I wonder if I know any painters that can fix that. That is really bad. Ugh. All right, we wove all the woven we're going to weave at 2.6 kilonewtons. So there's 8 of these triangles, right? And so like that was only 5 minutes of weaving. If you spent 1 hour per triangle, you would have so much paracord in that. So in 8 hours, these nets would be like, each net would be really well done. So yeah, 2 kilon is like 500 pounds of force. That's a lot. That's a lot on this little guy right here. Pretty impressive. So, all right, time to go to the park tomorrow morning and set them all up connected. We're finally at the park doing our corner weaves. These pieces right here are 12-foot span sets, and then the 2 over there are 10-foot span sets. It actually fits quite nicely in between these trees here. And we have our 3 spools of paracord on the rope, which is all cute. It's gonna be pretty colorful when we're done. The idea here is I'll probably put 8mm soft shackles here. I just like the way soft shackles don't get tri-loaded. But what we're gonna do is have maybe 3 of these, because we're gonna have sew-in loops, 3 layers of spider silk holding up this net. And so we'll have 3 sew-in loops attached to this point to have the least amount of bulk at this point, since we're trying to get on and off the net on the corners, naturally. And then on that side is where we'd have our web locks. What makes this easy if you are setting up a net is if you use a ratchet system, which is super easy to just get immediate tension and be able to just unratchet it. So this has been really nice. You can just go boop. But yeah, so after we're all done, we're gonna lay this out and see how they all interact with each other. So Mel here helped back up and helped us rig the space net for the wedding. He was also a pretty crucial part of the team last year for the space net. So it just makes sense that he's on the space net team again this year, and he's so nice. He lives in Sacramento, 45 minutes from me, so he can come help with a lot of this weaving and prototyping designing. So are you stoked about this here, man?
Yeah, it's gonna be a good one.
Yeah, all right. I should get to work. Okay, so I got it all set up here, and I'm learning a few things, but I like the direction it's going. I don't have the dyno on right now, but it's actually not very much force to get it up to this height. I think maybe about 2 kilonewtons to get it off the ground. Now I have some saggy spots, but that's because where the span sets join up next to each other, I didn't connect all the way. And I think that will help a lot in the future, but not worth doing right now. These are our first 3 colors of paracord that we're using. Pretty colorful stuff. I don't have any designs in my head right now that I'm trying to do. I just want it to be pretty colorful and random, and then at some point we can add a sun in there, or maybe weave GGBY into the middle or something. But what I've discovered here, let's see here. What I discovered right here is this soft shackle is only about, this is the bigger one that I use for the ENOV splits. It's too big. You can see here how much play there is in these ones right here. And I don't know how much that affects things. If these were together all the way across, I think it would tighten everything up. I also don't have everything woven in a way that stays. Ugh, let's see here. That right there looks a lot better with me just holding it. So if I think I connect this, but then I get a saggy spot right there. So I think a lot of that can be solved on site. I want to just have a nice foundation amount weaved before we set this up in the fruit bowl. We're basically going to take this all down, weave each one independently, and then reset it up here, problem solve everything we need to, and basically it's ready to take to GGBY. First day is going to be rigging, and then the next 2 days is just going to be detailing and tweaking and making sure it's tweaking all the little edges. Something I'm pretty excited about is this curve. These are this a 12 foot, and then the middle one is a 10 foot, and then over there's a 12 foot, and it brings out this curve really, really well. Same with this side, is it's not as curvy because these trees aren't perfect, but I don't feel like the net is fighting the natural shape that it wants to be. Most of these ropes are tight right here, so that's good. And then when we get to, let's see here, this is where they all connect. My padding came off. There we go. So right here at where they all connect is a big soft shackle. And if I start to pull this together, I just have to figure out how I want to do this. I think smaller soft shackles, beefier ones, and or redundant ones are the answer. As far as the center goes, I feel like this has too much play in it. I might have to do span sets for this centerpiece and not this AM steel, even though it can come out with some pretty cool designs. It kind of really got sucked in. There's a lot of stretch in these corners right here. And so this wanted to suck in all the way when I pulled with the rope. So the center square acts differently than all the other ones have been. And then I get this saggy section, which I guess I could connect to these two right here. But if I pull this way, I can get everything tight once it's up and installed. So now I'm going to disassemble it and make it super good enough. Lorenzo asked if I was going to put a hole in the middle of one of our first nets here, and I said no. And then we started talking about holes in the middle of the net. And we talked about leaving the center net completely unwoven. And so then we're like, well, what if we wanted to make a bigger hole? And so I think we just prototyped it with climbing slings, that we would build 3 extra nets and have 4 10-foot by 10 foots on all directions. That's only 3 extra nets for us to weave. And it's 1,600 square feet if we did weave the whole center. In this case, we would leave the 4 squares we would need to fill in the middle empty, and we'd put a 30-foot slack line corner to corner, a rope swing, a trapeze thing, the lyra, silks, and a portaledge, and have a circus in the center of a 40-foot by 40-foot space net. And it's going to be 1,200 square, 1,200 square feet of actually woven space net space. This thing's going to be absolutely gigantic. Puff's pretty excited. Lorenzo, what are we going to do to keep the center from collapsing?
I think we're going to put a circle of AM steel right here, so that way we have a solid frame in the center that we can pull essentially out and get rid of some of this saggy droopiness that we could experience that we've seen on all of our prototypes. So, yeah, circle gives us a solid perimeter to pull on instead of just pulling on each net itself. It'll be, you can think of it as a magnified version of one of these connector points where all the different nets come together at one point. It would be the idea of having one giant soft shackle in the center where all of them would become one unit connecting to that.
What shirt are you wearing?
The shirt, I got a GGBY last year because last year was dope and it gets better every year.
Oh,
so do the shirts.
Oh, nice plug.
We just finished the first net.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And do we have a kitty cat on there? So I weaved a river in the middle of his meadow. He did all that green. And this is the first net that's all done. It's sucked in the sides a lot more than I thought, but I think we can work with that. You can see how much of a curve that is. This thing is rock solid. This thing feels like 4 kilonewtons, but we didn't put the dynamometer on it. You can see all of our next nets right here on the ground. But something we're going to do a little bit different is we're going to put a dyno on this, and then after it gets to a certain amount, we'll just release it a little bit. But you're just doing an infinite amount of 3-to-1s, and that is making it tighter and tighter and tighter. So what's happening to my wall here is that's coming apart, and then this sheetrock here is starting to pull apart. Because this, I think, is behind the first 2x4 or in it, and then it's just basically pulling that 2x4 off the wall. So, but this thing is rock hard, and this thing is super stiff, and that's with nobody on it. So, definitely have to wear gloves or climbing tape in order to not bleed. What's your... Hold on. Here, let me see it again. Right there. Yeah, it'll tear your fingers up. So, you ready to make the next net, Jason?
Yeah.
Hey, Jason.
Yo.
You all done?
Yeah.
Yeah. Was this one gnarly? This is a sun with orange flares. Nice orange perimeter and a blue sky. And it was 2.5 kilonewtons just a moment ago. At 2.7 actually. And we just backed it off with our soft release system. So he can get on for the net photo as we've been taking photos of each person on each net. All right, get on up there. Oh, it's only 1.7. That's very doable. We just have to back off the tension when we're done building it.
This is so nice.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's gonna loosen anywhere.
Oh, that's a really nice tight weave for sure.
That's how I like them.
That's how you like them.